Hello and welcome. I hope you're all having a great re:Invent. My name is Vipin Mohan, and I'm a Principal Product Manager at Amazon Web Services. In this session, we will talk about AI-powered data integration and governance with Amazon Q Developer. We will start with challenges that builders are facing. We'll talk about what is Amazon Q Developer. Then we'll spend some time talking about a new announcement, SageMaker Unified Studio, that was announced in Matt Garman's keynote yesterday. We will then dive into Amazon Q in SageMaker Unified Studio. And then I'll hand it over to Mohit Saxena, who will talk about Amazon Q and generative AI capabilities for Apache Spark in SageMaker data processing. We'll also have some demos along the way, and I hope you're all excited. So let's do a quick poll. If you are a data engineer or a data analyst, somebody who focuses on interpreting data to uncover insights, and if you use a lot of statistical tools and visualization techniques to analyze your data sets, let's do a show of hands. Okay, that's about a quarter of the group here. If you are a data steward, somebody who focuses on governance, quality, and consistency, and you act as a bridge between your technical teams and your business users, and let's say you focus on ensuring your organization's data and assets are properly managed, maintained, and utilized in compliance with policies and regulations, let's do a show of hands. As I anticipated, a smaller group, but great to have you. And if you are a data scientist or an ML scientist, you focus on developing and optimizing models to enable machines to learn, and you focus on advancing your organization's machine learning techniques by conducting research, for example. Let's do a show of hands. A few people in the audience, great. And lastly, if you are an app developer, like you focus on building applications that leverage generative AI models to create dynamic content, it could be text or images or video, and you focus on integrating AI capabilities into your business and delivering value to your end customers, let's do a show of hands. Great. That's about a third of the room. So it's great to have a good mix in the group today. And we'll start with challenges that builders are facing. So customers tell us that it is not the lack of technical resources, but the ability to find them quickly from the vast technical resources that they have, best practice guides, all of that. Also, when you're onboarding new members to your organization, they have to come up to speed on the schema of the data assets that you have before they can start being productive. And schemas can involve multiple tables or columns, and they may often be ambiguous or poorly defined relationship between all of those entities, which make it difficult or reduces the pace at which users can onboard. From a governance perspective, protecting sensitive data from unauthorized access and ensuring privacy while maintaining the data utility is a continuous challenge. Also, ensuring compliance with internal and external regulations and constantly monitoring and adapting to new compliance requirements is also challenging. We believe that the traditional builder experience must be improved. It currently requires developers to spend a lot of time writing thousands of lines of code, and they also spend a significant amount of time debugging. This process hampers productivity, and developers often get bogged down in repetitive tasks, like configuring infrastructure or refactoring code. And the cycle is slow, it's error-prone, and in the long run, it stifles innovation, and developers cannot really build the innovative applications that they envision. From a troubleshooting perspective, tracing errors to their origin often involves analyzing vast amounts of data from logs, from streams, from monitoring stacks, and even user feedback. To meet today's business demands, the software development process desperately needs an overhaul on automation and intelligence. So what is Amazon Q Developer? Amazon Q Developer is a GenAI-powered assistant that simplifies complex data tasks, such as understanding schemas and query optimizations, and it reduces the development time and accelerates project delivery. It seamlessly integrates with a variety of AWS services and tools, AWS databases, and ensures compatibility and ease of deployment in various cloud environments. It also assists developers and IT teams in creating and maintaining applications that are secure, scalable, and highly available. Amazon Q Developer enables faster code authoring, debugging, testing, optimization, and even upgrading code. So let's now talk about Q Developer in SageMaker Unified Studio. And we'll begin with the next generation of Amazon SageMaker that we announced yesterday. The next generation of Amazon SageMaker is a unified data and AI platform to accelerate analytics and AI initiatives. Amazon SageMaker provides the best place to run analytics and AI with access to all your data and tools. With the SageMaker Unified Studio, you get a single experience across all your tools and data, and you can speed up data processing, SQL querying, model training, and generative AI app development, all of it assisted by Amazon Q at every single step. You can use your preferred analytics and ML engines on data that is unified across Amazon S3 data lakes, Amazon Redshift warehouses, and many more data sources with Amazon SageMaker Lakehouse. Governance is built in with SageMaker Catalog to meet all of your enterprise security and compliance requirements. So what is SageMaker Unified Studio? SageMaker Unified Studio gives you a single development experience across all of your data and tools for analytics and AI. You can transform how your data and teams collaborate in project spaces that put all of your governed data and your favorite tools at their fingertips. Your teams can discover and access data that is stored in databases, data warehouses, data lakes, and work in a single governed environment to accomplish end-to-end workflows, ranging from data discovery to processing, to model training, to sharing data sets, and much more. You can easily train, customize, and deploy AI models at scale. With SageMaker Unified Studio, you can develop AI, machine learning, and foundation models using SageMaker AI's fully managed infrastructure, tools, and workflows. You can rapidly and efficiently build generative AI applications in trusted and secure environments using Bedrock IDE. And along the way, you can accelerate your journey with Amazon Q Developer. You can leverage the most capable generative AI assistant, Amazon Q, for tasks across your development lifecycle, from coding, testing, upgrading, troubleshooting, and even building engineering pipelines. Amazon Q Developer streamlines every step of the experience to quickly understand and utilize your data sources. So what exactly does SageMaker Unified Studio unify? So with SageMaker Unified Studio, you have a consistent notebook experience and a query editor experience that spans across a variety of different data services and AI services, all in a central UI. You can use the best tool for the job across any imaginable use case. You can streamline access to your favorite tools and functionality in unified notebooks built on top of Jupyter Lab. You can quickly and easily process large volumes of data without managing infrastructure using most popular data processing frameworks like AWS Glue and EMR serverless. You can build integrated pipelines with Visual ETL, all of it powered by Amazon Q. You can unlock insights in a powerful SQL editor, or you can run Python code for machine learning from a single unified Jupyter notebook. SageMaker AI offers infrastructure and purpose-built tools for each step of the model building lifecycle, including IDEs and notebooks. These are backed by high-performing accelerated computing instances and purpose-built infrastructure for distributed training at scale. You get governance and MLOps tools and inference options and recommendations for building and evaluating your machine learning models. With Bedrock IDE, you can choose from a selection of high-performing foundation models and advanced customization capabilities like knowledge bases, guardrails, agents, and flows. You can rapidly tailor GenAI applications according to your business needs and responsible AI guidelines and deploy quickly to drive business impact. The integration of Amazon Q Developer into SageMaker Unified Studio transforms how your builders can accomplish all of these tasks. It streamlines the entire development process for builders. Imagine an AI that can understand your project context, suggest optimizations to your code, and even help you debug code, all of it while respecting your organization's governance boundaries. The free tier of Amazon Q Developer is available out of the box in SageMaker Unified Studio. And if you have a Q Developer Pro tier subscription, you can bring that in to SageMaker Unified Studio and take advantage of Pro tier features. So what are some of the things you can do with Q in SageMaker Unified Studio? Firstly, Q&A. You can get guidance on how to set up a project or a domain, which are new concepts when you're just starting off with SageMaker Unified Studio. You can chat about your data assets in natural language through a conversational interface. You can ask questions about data published in your catalog. For example, you can say, show me data on sales. And Amazon Q will interpret your query, execute the appropriate API calls, and return the results directly in the chat interface. You can use it for code authoring. You can write code snippets or even entire functions. You can identify and address configuration errors and bring your applications up to date. For SQL querying, you can enhance productivity of your builders by simplifying query writing and receiving SQL suggestions based on natural language inputs. So let's start with the planning phase. When you're just getting started with SageMaker Unified Studio, you have to set up a domain and a project. And you've probably done some preliminary research at this point, and you're just getting ready to set up your SageMaker Unified Studio environment. So let's see this in action. So in SageMaker Unified Studio, you work with your team inside projects. So let's assume this is the very first time you're using SageMaker Unified Studio, and you've just entered a project. Q is available to you at the top right, and you bring up the chat interface, and you ask pick one of the canned questions and ask, what is SageMaker Unified Studio? You can see that Q quickly gives you a summary of what is SageMaker Unified Studio right there in the environment that you are in, the screen that you are in. Now you're curious. You've read about projects and domains in that description, and you want to know what they are. All you have to do is ask Q about what are domains and projects and how you set them up. And Q will give you a quick summary based on the best response that's available to it. Now remember that all of this is happening off console. So SageMaker Unified Studio is like a SaaS application that is running outside the AWS console, and you can still take advantage of Q in the application. So that's the response you're getting from Q for what are domains and projects and how you set them up, along with pointers to some documentation. Great. So we talked briefly about SageMaker catalog. With SageMaker Unified Studio, you can discover your data and AI assets at scale with Amazon SageMaker catalog, which is built on top of Amazon Data Zone. SageMaker catalog provides governance and collaboration in SageMaker Unified Studio. You can enhance your data discovery with generative AI to automatically enrich your data with descriptions, metadata, business glossary terms, and make it easy for your users to find all of that information from the existing assets. Data consumers and producers can leverage natural language and semantic search to discover most relevant data sets for their use cases. Let's go over another quick demo. So let's assume that you've now learned what is a project and you've created your first project. Yeah. So you want to get going and start publishing some assets into your business data catalog. You can see that you have some raw data, but there's not much of description or technical or business glossary available for it. Don't worry, you can generate your description by clicking on the Generate Descriptions button. And within a few seconds, with the magic of Gen AI, you can see a summary of that data set being generated for you. You do a quick skim of that summary. You can edit it if you want to. And you can accept the summary that was generated for you. Remember, there's no training or anything required for you. This just worked for you out of the box. So now you want to publish that asset and make it available to other users within your organization. So let's say you did this on a Friday afternoon and you were going out on a vacation for the next week. Your colleague Elsa has just onboarded to your project in SageMaker Unified Studio, and she is a data analyst. She wants to understand what data sets are available to her and begin doing some analysis on that data set. So she goes to the business data catalog and looks at the raw data and the schema, but is not able to make much sense of the contents. All she has to do is open up Q and ask what data sets contain checking account balance data. So Q looks through all of the metadata that is available to it in that catalog and shows Elsa a few relevant data sets. Now Elsa is excited, but she wants to get more specific. So she asks which data sets contain information about loan status. So Q looks through all of the metadata and finds the information about loan status. So you can see that Elsa has been able to quickly narrow down the right data set that she wanted and wants to begin analyzing that. So she looks at the schema now. She goes through descriptions of each of the columns. And she clicks on Actions and begins to query with Athena. She's automatically transferred over to the query editor with a pre-populated SQL query that will allow her to get started with querying that table. Imagine doing all of this manually, having to go through all of those data sets, making notes, and finding out which is the relevant data set to get started with. So how does this work? What exactly happened behind the scenes? So I'll peel the onion for you on this. Elsa began, she's a data builder, and she began by writing a prompt to search for data sets in the business data catalog. That prompt is consumed by the Q interface and is dynamically routed to one among many backend systems. And we pick the right backend system that is best suited to respond to that query. And as the response is created, Q only uses the permissions associated with that particular user. So that ensures that data access is secure and safe, and it uses any context that is only relevant to that user. So in this case, for example, when Elsa asked, show me data sets that have the loan status information, Q only looked at the data sets to which Elsa had access to and the scope of the metadata that she was allowed to access. So SQL querying. SageMaker Unified Studio gives you the Redshift query editor out of the box. And Generative SQL makes it easy for you to analyze data and makes it much more accessible, allowing your team members to focus on insights rather than on the mechanics of writing code. Your builders can write custom SQL queries without needing an in-depth understanding of your data sets or the schemas. And that not only accelerates onboarding, but also empowers non-technical users to engage with data confidently. Data security and governance are at the forefront of Generative SQL. We ensure that users have consistent compliance with data governance policies and permissions. So let's watch another quick demo. So now let's say that you're in the same project and you have a new person on your team, Andrew, who's an undergrad intern who's just joined your team. You've given Andrew a project to work on over the summer, and it's a SQL-based project, but Andrew's new to SQL. So Andrew navigates to the query editor, and he sees the tables that he has access to. Now he wants to run some queries on these tables, but remember, he's new to SQL. All he has to do is select the connection, the catalog, and the database, and then invoke Q and ask, show me data from the loans table. So Q gives him a SQL query to begin querying. And Andrew can easily transfer that query from the chat interface into a new in the without having to do any further munging of the queries. So Andrew is excited now that he's run his first SQL query, and he wants to run something more complex. He now asks, show me the customer name and checking account balance for all customers who have a loan in the active status. Wow, now that involves querying 3 different data sets about which Andrew doesn't have much information about. And he has to run some join statements to get the right columns from the relevant tables and relevant data sets. But you can see that all Andrew did was to ask the question in natural language, and Q gives him a SQL query with the appropriate join conditions and statements that he can use to execute that query. Great, so Andrew now got the SQL query. He can review it if he wants to and make any edits if required, but in this case, he sees the inner joins which he wasn't aware of, and he just executes that query. So Andrew has now been able to get to some insights very quickly without having much knowledge about SQL. And now he realizes that he also wants the investment account balances for all of these customers. So rather than having to ask the entire question again, he can use Q Developer's multi-turn feature and just ask, can you add the total investment account balance for that query? And Q remembers the previous question he had asked and accordingly alters the query to give him the right information that he's looking for. So you can see that Q has now altered that query. It already had 2 inner joins. It's now added a left join as well, and it gives him the query that he needs to run. So you can see that with Generative SQL in SageMaker Unified Studio, it streamlines your workflows, enhances collaboration, and ensures your organization can harness your data securely and efficiently. I'll now hand it over to Mohit to talk about Amazon Q and generative AI capabilities for Apache Spark in SageMaker data processing.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Vipin, for going over a nice overview of Amazon Q capabilities in SageMaker Unified Studio. My name is Mohit, and I'm a senior manager for the integrated AI experiences for SageMaker data processing services like AWS Glue and Amazon EMR. In the remainder of the session, I would go over some exciting and new capabilities that we are launching this year to simplify your data processing experience with Apache Spark. Let me quickly start with the introduction of SageMaker data processing with Apache Spark. Like SageMaker Studio provides a unified studio experience across different services, SageMaker data processing allows customers to get a unified experience with a performance-optimized Apache Spark runtime that powers both AWS Glue and Amazon EMR. AWS Glue provides customers with a seamless experience to discover, prepare, and integrate data at any scale. Amazon EMR, powered by the same performance-optimized Spark runtime, allows customers to perform petabyte-scale data analytics. It also allows customers to run big data workloads on EC2, EKS, and in serverless mode. Customers can now benefit from fine-grained access control with Amazon SageMaker Lakehouse, all through SageMaker data processing. Before we get into the new integrated AI capabilities that we have built to improve the experience of users using Apache Spark on SageMaker data processing, let me quickly first go over some silent features of Apache Spark that have made it one of the most popular data processing engines today. While I go over those silent features, I will also describe some of the technical challenges that we have heard from customers that often encounter when they are using Spark at scale. Apache Spark is a distributed system, and there are two primary capabilities of Spark which make it one of the most popular data processing engine today. First is the massive distributed parallelism it offers for executing your big data workloads. And second is its flexible programming interface that differentiates it from other data processing platforms. Internally, both Glue and EMR manage Apache Spark applications by allowing customers to run several data parallel jobs concurrently. Each job is divided into stages, and each stage is further subdivided into tasks which operate on concurrent partitions, which are shards of your data set in Amazon S3 or data warehouses. Now, this job manager schedules these tasks on these executors, and it can allocate thousands of executors, offering massive parallelism for your data parallel jobs. While data engineers and developers benefit from the fact that all this parallelism and distributed infrastructure is hidden from them with the serverless API, and all the infrastructure management is also abstracted from them, at points, customers often report that they still have to understand how the distributed execution happens at different points in the execution of their applications and the life cycle of their applications. For example, low-code, no-code developers or users, they find it challenging to map their application logic onto this distributed execution at the very early stage of the design and architecture of their application. Even the most Spark-savvy developers find it sometimes challenging to troubleshoot complex application failures which stem from the distributed execution of Spark. The second powerful capability of Spark is its programming interface. Let's look at a simple ETL DAG where a user wants to read from Snowflake a table and then apply some projections over it using a SQL transform and then write the data into Amazon Redshift. So this is the DAG, and it gets converted into a PySpark code, which is about 25 lines of code. This is a highly expressive programming interface of Apache Spark, where, as you can see, you can use a mix of SQL as well as Python code. SQL is declarative, and Python is imperative. And as per your preference, you can mix and match between the two programming styles. You can use SQL to express your data transforms, while you can use Python to connect to Snowflake and write your data to Redshift. While this mix of programming languages helps developers to pick their own language of choice, the downside of this is for low-code, no-code users, this is still 25 lines of code, and it's not as intuitive as this ETL DAG. The second powerful capability of Spark is it allows you to specify a multitude of configuration options, which give you a lot of flexibility when you are connecting to different sources. So for example, in this case, Snowflake, you can provide the push-down capabilities, the database, the schema. Similarly, on Redshift, you can provide the temporary staging location and the database and connectivity operations. However, the downside of this is, while it's super flexible, across Spark versions, some of these configurations and the default values for those parameters change. In fact, some new configurations are introduced, which make it practically very challenging for users to migrate their application from one version of Spark to another version. The third capability of Spark is lazy evaluation of its operations. So if you look at this code, when this executes, none of this code for Snowflake table reads or Spark SQL transforms actually execute until it gets to the point of writing the data to Redshift. This is because Spark constructs a query plan, but actually doesn't materialize the data until it has to. It makes it highly performant, but at the same time, it makes it challenging even for the savvy Spark developers to troubleshoot failures, because it's not easy to identify the line of code because of asynchronous execution where the failure happened. To address these challenges for customers, we have built 3 new capabilities and launching them this year. The first capability simplifies the build process for Apache Spark applications. We serve both low-code, no-code users as well as developers who use SageMaker Unified Studio notebooks. For low-code, no-code users, they can simply express their intent in English, and behind the scenes, this capability generates visual ETL DAGs as well as PySpark code for them. For developers, they can use the same natural language prompts and get auto-code completion in their notebooks. The second capability which we are launching this year is simplifying troubleshooting experience. And as I mentioned earlier, since Spark is distributed, it could take days or at least hours to debug complex application failures. With this capability, we can provide instant root cause analysis for Spark jobs with actionable recommendations. It brings down the mean time to resolution from days to minutes. The final capability is to modernize and upgrade, simplifying that lifecycle of the applications so that customers can stay current and competitive with the latest versions of Spark, and they don't lag behind their update cycles. All this is done through automating these different phases of the lifecycle of the application using GenAI. Let's go over the first capability. We launched Amazon Q for data integration with Apache Spark earlier this year, wherein you can converse with your data and integrate it with natural language. Since we launched, a lot of developers and customers have used it, and they have been able to build data integration Spark jobs faster. However, we still found that customers wanted to express their intents even more in a simpler fashion. For example, if the user has to author a data integration pipeline, they don't have to deal with PySpark code or Visual DAG. What if they can express their intent using a simple idea in their mind, and the system or the GenAI capability implements the DAG as well as the PySpark code for them? To address this challenge, we are launching this capability which has 3 sub-features. The first is English to Visual DAG, in addition to PySpark code. And with this, we use advanced state-of-the-art models as well as bring the AWS knowledge, which we have used for years for helping customers build their Spark applications, and new compiler techniques to generate visual DAGs and Spark code for users. In 2024 itself, Amazon Q has helped tens of thousands of users globally with more than 100,000 questions related to data integration. The second feature of this capability is context awareness. Now, you can express a simple prompt like, create me a glue script that reads file in S3 bucket, blah, rename the column A to column B, and write it to Redshift database XYZ. And all this S3 bucket name, column name, and Redshift database and table name is the context which is embedded in the prompt. And this capability makes sure that this context is transferred from the user into the DAG or the PySpark code, which is created for them automatically. Third, we allow users to interact with Amazon Q so that they can build their pipelines in an iterative fashion. For example, if you have to add a transform after a pipeline is built, you can just simply converse and ask Q to add a transform to the pipeline. Similarly, if you want to update something on the sync node, you can do that through the multi-turn chat capability. Let's look at it in action. So herein, we have a user who is trying to use two tables in Glue Data Catalog, which is managed in SageMaker Studio through SageMaker Lakehouse, and try to join over a column in these two tables. The table names are venue and events. And as you can see, he can express this intent using a simple natural language prompt, asking the capability to Amazon Q to develop a pipeline for it. Behind the scenes, Amazon Q generates the entire pipeline, and the user can inspect that it captured the context which was embedded in the prompt as the properties for each and every node. Furthermore, the user can add a new transform with the multi-turn chat capability. And in this case, after the join, the user wants a filter transform. And the filter transform automatically shows up. And the user can inspect the filter condition is correct. Now, the user wants to update the S3 sync with a new format as well as a S3 bucket location. It can actually converse with the Amazon Q, and it will update the S3 location and the file format to a different one. Under the cover, PySpark code is automatically generated for this DAG as well. And the user can now simply execute the pipeline and preview its data at the execution and in the output S3 location. The same natural language prompt can be executed on Amazon Q through the chat console on AWS. So you can express the same prompt, and Amazon Q will give you the PySpark code for the same prompt. It can also be executed on notebooks for developers for the purpose of autocode completion. You can express a prompt in the form of a comment, and it will generate the code which is required, and it helps improve the productivity of the developers. You can review the code and accept for using it in your development cycle. Next capability which we are launching this year is generative AI troubleshooting for Apache Spark in AWS Glue. This helps you automate Spark troubleshooting experience. You can actually direct root cause of Spark job failures automatically. Not only the root cause, you can also isolate the line of code in your Spark script where that error actually happened. Like I mentioned, Spark is distributed, and it's lazy in its execution. So with this capability, we simplify that challenge and address it for users. Not only the root cause, we also provide a recommended action which the users can execute to address that failure. Today, without this capability, users had to go to distributed logs from different executors and metrics and use Spark UI for debugging. And this is because Spark is a distributed platform, and these logs are coming from several executors on different machines. They have to connect these dots and use Spark UI to figure out the executor timeline, and this entire process could take hours to days. In fact, some of the customers even told us that they have to involve multiple engineers over days and sometimes AWS support to get to the bottom of the problem. So with GenAI-based Spark troubleshooting workflow, we are simplifying this experience for users by isolating the root cause and the line of code for hard-to-diagnose issues like out-of-memory exceptions and out-of-disk errors, which are difficult to debug. For common issues like resource setup or configuration errors, this also helps by identifying the line of code where the error happened. Let's take an example. So this is a user who is trying to debug a job which he has written to read data from a S3 bucket, apply a filter transform, and when he executes it, it fails. He just simply clicks on troubleshooting analysis, and the GenAI capability identifies that this is a S3 bucket name error, and this is the line of code where the error happened. The user can simply go to the script at that line number and figure out that the S3 path or the bucket name was incorrect. He can fix it and then save the job and re-execute it to get a successful execution. So this is a very common error which customers typically have because of resource configuration or bucket name excess or bucket name errors. Not only this, this capability also identifies the line of code and the root cause for complex errors, such as out-of-memory expressions, and it gives the correct error class associated with the error. This is in preview on AWS Glue, and we are expanding the number of error classes which we address over the time. The third capability is GenAI upgrades for Apache Spark in AWS Glue. This is also going in preview this year, and this will help automate the Spark version upgrades. Like I mentioned, Spark versions or Spark releases, when they happen, they typically make backwards incompatible changes to Spark APIs, which are both in Python as well as in SQL. In fact, some of the configuration values change, and new configurations are introduced, which are also sometimes backwards compatible. As a result of that, the upgrade process for developers is sometimes very painful. Some customers even told us that it takes multiple months for them to upgrade their thousands of applications in an enterprise setting from one version of Spark to another. And this is all manual. With this capability, we are automating this process so that they can upgrade their applications faster with generative AI. It inspects the Spark code and the configurations and identifies the places in the Spark code where backwards incompatible changes have happened or configurations which have changed, and it removes the manual work of identifying and updating that. It also validates the updated Spark application in a test sandbox environment before the customers can accept and review the application and apply the changes to their production environment. Let's see how it works. So in this case, there's a user who wants to upgrade the application from Glue version 2.0, which runs on Spark 2.4.3, and Python version 3.7. And he wants to upgrade it to Glue version 4.0, which is running on a Spark version 3.3.0 and Python version 3.10. These are major version changes and on both Python and Spark. And as you can see, the user will just simply click on the console and try to upgrade this application from Glue version 2.0. And first step in the process is running an upgrade analysis, where the user asks the system to do an inspection of the code and provide an upgrade summary in this S3 path, and the upgraded script in this S3 path. Behind the scenes, we are using a mix of program analysis and GenAI techniques to figure out a migration plan wherein it will inspect all the points in the code as well as the configurations which require an update. As you can see, it goes through 5 different attempts. Each attempt tries to address one error at a time during the upgrade process. And this error could be stemming from a backwards and incompatible API or a method signature change or a configuration change. And all this happens in a test sandbox environment. And once the GenAI capability figures out a resolution to the error, it moves on to the next point in the code. And after resolving all the errors, it is finally able to upgrade the application successfully to Glue version 4.0 or Spark version 3.3.0. All this happens in an automatic fashion for the users with minimal manual intervention, while the users have complete visibility and control over the logs and the intermediate steps. The users can also inspect at the end the upgrade summary. What happened? What changed? In this case, as you can see, the upgrade summary will list all the migration rules which applied to the upgrade process. There were 2 SQL configuration changes, 1 method dated changed its API, 1 method count which changed its method signature name, and there was a decimal type precision change which happened between the 2 Spark versions. The users can also look at the code diff, where the diff happened to upgrade this Spark application on the left side to the right side on Spark version 3.3.0. Now, with this capability, we are building this based on millions of Spark application upgrades which happen in AWS and using the knowledge base for the same. Over the next few months, we will also improve the program analysis techniques and AI models behind this capability to cover a larger variety of Spark versions and also extend it to services beyond Glue. To summarize, Vipin and I covered 3 different core use cases where Amazon Q and GenAI capabilities help our customers. We started with the GenAI-driven catalog search and discovery, how Q helps with inline code recommendations for generating SQL as well as PySpark code, and visual ETL flows, which can also be automatically generated with contextual analytics. And we can reduce the time for operations with multiple years of AWS expertise now put together in knowledge bases. And with that, we can provide instant root cause analysis, even for complex errors. And you don't have to spend days to troubleshoot such errors. Finally, we are also focusing on retiring your tech debt at scale by modernizing your Spark applications with a single-click AI-driven experience so that not only you get the upgrades automatically, but they are also validated automatically for you before you apply them to your production environments. With this, I would like to conclude, and feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn, and please complete the session survey in your mobile app. Thank you.